Welcome, guys. We've had the eventful Belgian Grand Prix, and now it's that time where I go through and rate each and every one of the drivers on how they got on over the whole weekend and my predictions review. Let's get to it. Welcome, guys. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, and if you enjoy the video, hit the like. And as ever, we always start with the race winner. This kid has been taking the championship by storm. A little bit unlucky in the last couple of Grand Prix. Not got the results he deserved. This weekend, though, he was a man on fire. Man on a mission. Absolutely brilliant. Topped every session bar one in free practice. Got pole position. Controlled the race. Got unlucky with the VSC timing. Or Ferrari got lucky for the VSC timing. But he did the job on track, it was made a little bit harder for him than he'd probably like, but he had everything under control pre his pit stop, and then he hunted down Charles Leclerc, made the pass. He wasn't a country mile quicker in race conditions, but over one lap, he was flying, put some real manners on his teammate. Half a second faster in qualifying. And yes, George had his issues down the straight at the start. Kimi clearly didn't. He got passed by Max Verstappen out of La Source and then had him at the end of the Kemmel straight. So the issues that George suffered, they weren't there for Kimi, and unless that's just the way he deployed power. We've seen Charles do that at the start. He downshifted, lost position, but then gained two at the end of the straight. And like Max, just like George, but Max was, unfortunate or lucky, but he'd made a position, then dropped two to Antonelli and Charles Leclerc as well at the start. But Kimi was absolutely phenomenal. There was just an absolutely flawless weekend, much deserved and much needed from him. He opens up a huge gap in the championship now to his teammate Lewis, now 45 points back. His nearest championship rival is now a Ferrari driver. It's no longer his teammate. George Russell chopped his lead down to 25 points. It's now back to 50 points as he takes every advantage. And this weekend, you've got to say it's well-deserved. He's been really lucky, like I said, in previous Grand Prix when he's done the job on track and it's just not gone right for him. This weekend, though, it was almost like this determination and there was a surety that he's going to get everything he deserves, and he's turned up to every Grand Prix like that, and that's been what's so impressive. He's not really been bogged down with the DNF in Silverstone, even though that was a win on the cards. He's come back, he's bounced back, and he's been fast, and just another really assured weekend. This was like one of them weekends where it just felt sort of champion's drive, just that level of calmness, level of assurity that you know that he was going to take this win no matter what happened in the race. There was no ranting, raving over the team radio about the pit stop or unlucky on the safety car. Head down, got the job done, and he marches on. Hungary next. I think that'd be a bit of a struggle for Mercedes before the summer break. But he's almost like doesn't want this break, does he, at the moment? The momentum's with him. He's driving absolutely brilliantly, and at the moment, it's hard to bet against him in the championship, but there's a long way to go yet. So we're not even at half the distance into the season. That will be after Hungary if we do have 22 Grand Prix. Rumours about the final couple of Grand Prix in the air still, so watch out for my preview of Hungary coming shortly. But for Kimi Antonelli, there's no doubt it's a 10 out of 10. Second place man, Charles Leclerc, back on the podium after Silverstone. This weekend, they didn't quite have the pace that we seen in Silverstone over one lap. That showed in qualified P5, obviously helped up by Lando Norris's penalty, which he started P4. And like I said earlier, a great start, or a great trick at the start. He downshifted on the way up through Eau Rouge and out of Radion. He then had the extra power because he saved early doors, got the pass on George, passed Max Verstappen also, and then into second place. And then from there on, got lucky with the safety car. There's no two ways about that. But his pace from there on was really, really good. Proper strong pace. It was surprising where the race pace had come from on this Ferrari. Where I thought they were at least 3/10 down on the Mercedes. Come race day, it was about 10th and a half, 2. So they'd cut the gap there. The deg on tyres was pretty good. Really solid pace from Charles Leclerc. I don't think he had enough in him to ever hold Kimi Antonelli back for the whole race. I think that was the little downside, but to come here and predict a difficult weekend and to go home with a second place, Charles Leclerc is really stepping up at the moment. Much of the weekend he looked like the slower of the two Ferraris, but then come qualifying he stands up, and it's good to see that we're getting the Charles Leclerc back, the qualifying specialist back. He's struggled with that with this iteration of cars, with the way the whole battery works, but it's now found a way to maximise that with his couple of pole positions, getting on top of his teammate now over 1 lap pace. That just builds confidence. He's got the win. He's now got a second place. And Charles Leclerc now is building momentum in his fight in the championship. So all this talk of Lewis being the man at Ferrari, Charles now stepped up, much needed. A good change in form for him. It's now not just one sort of lucky win in some senses that he got in Silverstone. This is a really strong performance at a track that they should have struggled at. And next time out, they go to Hungary, where it's going to be a coin flip between him and his teammate, really, isn't it? They look and should be the strongest there. That is a circuit built for this Ferrari. So we'll see what happens on that front. But for this weekend, I think he did and delivered more than that car had in it. And it's a tough one to not give him a 10, but I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. I just think qualifying, was there a little bit more in it? He said he lifted when he seen a yellow, which was a yellow for the pit lane. A small error there, cost him a position. I don't think he left much on the table, so it's really hard to almost not give him a 10, but I'm giving him a 9, and it was a really strong weekend from Charles Leclerc. Third place man, Max Verstappen, and great to see him back on the podium. Missed out in Silverstone, which was a well-deserved podium, and this weekend was well-deserved as well. Worked brilliantly with the team. The team cohesion there is strong. Really good work with him and Isaac. If you watch the second runs, where in the first one, Isaac, when he was helping Max with the tow, was counted in by his engineer. Second time round, he was like, forget this, I'm doing this myself. Stay quiet, I'll manage this from here. And it was a near perfect tow through Blanchimont for Max Verstappen that gained him 3/10, Max said. And he said, without Isaac's tow, I wouldn't be stood here. And in the race, a difficult one. He wasn't too complaining about the battery. I think he just understands that's the sport of where it is at the moment. Race pace was decent on the first set of mediums, but when it changed to the hards, he lost his way in a little bit. The car just wasn't there underneath him. Couldn't seem to get the tyres in the range at any point. They were either too cold or overheating. And so never had the race pace that we've seen from Max Verstappen before, but he's maximised it. He's got everything out of this car this weekend. I don't think it was a podium car. I think that should really have been Lewis's, and Max probably should have finished fourth, if we're all honest about the pace of this Red Bull. But Max does Max things, and that's why I say you can never count this guy out, and that's why he's wanted by every team on the grid. He's phenomenal, a brilliant race driver, brilliant qualifier. He's got the whole package, and he's delivered again this weekend. Tough one of where you put him. I was thinking possibly an 8, but I'm going to go for a 9 because, again, if you're delivering more than what the car has in it, I think that's a pretty solid result, and he can be happy with this weekend. We'll see what he can do in Hungary. I don't think that'll be one of their strongest circuits, but this one going into it without the Macarena wing, that would have sort of helped him with pace, and to pull off a really strong performance is just what Max does and what we expect, but it shouldn't put a downer on the result because it's still a very good drive from him. 9 out of 10 max. Fourth place man, Lewis Hamilton, and another, I've got to say, difficult weekend for him actually in the end. He was looking strong, really happy with his car FP3 when he had that big crash, and then in sort of fixing the car and not being able to get it exactly bang onto the car that he had pre-crash. He said there was about a tenth lost in the car, but that's just down to his fault. Qualifying, out-qualified by his teammate. Again, is that just down to the FP3 crash? Probably. Then I think he's really unlucky with the 5-second penalty with George Russell. I think that's definitely a racing incident. It's the more I've seen it, I've watched it quite a few times now, the more I'm just convinced that it was a racing incident, especially lap one, colder tyres, whole battery shenanigans, power, no power. He lost his front end a little bit. He admitted that, but George also saying, I think it was just a racing incident. So I think 5 seconds, probably harsh. Then he also had this unsafe release incident as well. So a sloppy race in terms of that. He got another penalty, another weekend, another penalty, another investigation after the race looming. Thankfully, there was no sporting penalty for him after the race for that unsafe release. It was just a fine to the team. Surprising it wasn't a sporting penalty. We've generally seen it fall that way. Luckily for him, the mechanic didn't injure himself, and I think that's a really good, the best part of it really for him this weekend. He needs to just get his head down, pick up, just needs a clean weekend, I think. Otherwise, I think another podium was on. He was finished, around 5 seconds back of Max Verstappen. So put that in place with the slow stop as well with the unsafe release. I think a podium was definitely there. He didn't even get the wing turn on that front wing following the team letting him go without making that adjustment, which caused obviously that crash or him taking his mechanic out in the pit stop. So it wasn't really a crash. And so if you look at that, his pace was still, he came on really strong. The Ferraris got stronger on them hards as everyone seemed to drop off. I don't think he had enough in it in the end to catch Max, but when it's all said and done, I think he knows, and Ferrari will know, that it was definitely a P3 on a podium for him in Spa, which has been lost this weekend for one fault or another. But he needs a clean weekend, and he goes next to a Grand Prix where he's absolutely phenomenal, is Lewis Hamilton. So we'll see how he gets on there. But for this weekend, I've got to say, difficult one and probably a little bit disappointing. I'm giving him a 6 out of 10. Fifth place man, Oscar Piastri. And I think this is another weekend where he's just really struggled. He's not had the better of his teammate. Lando Norris put it in P3 in qualifying. He was 7th. There's about a 2 or 3 tenth gap to his teammate. He's not managed to bridge that gap just yet. The McLaren looks stronger. I don't think they maximised it. He had a decent race. Was racing Charles Leclerc at one point. Was it the incident? And he seemed to get damage on his car that cost him from there onwards. And am I being a little bit harsh? He then had a battle with Lewis Hamilton. He lost out to 4th place there as well. He's just not looked quite on pace yet. Not the Oscar Piastri on song that we know from last season. And I think that's what we're judging him up against now. It's not against anybody else. It's against himself of what we've seen last season and them performances. And he's just not quite there yet. And it's a little bit disappointing because he was bigged up at the whole real deal. And we've seen others sort of pick up where the losses were in these iteration of cars, for example, Charles Leclerc, and we've not seen that growth yet from Oscar Piastri. And I think that's probably the disappointment part of his season just yet. We're now 10 races in. It's not, we're like 3 or 4 races in or 5, 6 races in. Best part of half a season nearly now. And so if it doesn't come in Hungary, he's got to make a big step over the summer break. And we kind of want him, and I'd really like to see him bounce back in the Dutch Grand Prix. He just needs to show that it's there and within him yet, and we've not kind of seen that just yet, and I think that's the most unfortunate part. A difficult weekend, I've got to say, overall then, and I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. Sixth place man, Isaac Hadjar, and I think his is one of those race weekends that's really gone under the radar. I think a really strong race from him, and qualifying, he had all the power unit penalties, so he was going to start last. Played the brilliant team game, helped out his teammate with a huge tow, and then to charge from 21st on the grid to 6th, I think that's a solid result. Beat Lando Norris, who was no slouch in the race, so really, really good drive from Isaac Hadjar, one of his better ones, and I think it's a huge result for him and the team to come up and finish where he did, to hold off Lando Norris in the end, who was charging him down, and he did so with older tyres, and not a huge gap to Norris either, so it did look like he'd be a sitting duck once Norris got there, but he just drove quite brilliantly, to be honest, because there was parts or odd laps where he was about half a second slower than Norris due to tyres, but then just slowly eked the gaps out a couple of really, really strong laps, which just meant he'd broken the rate at which Norris was attacking him, and then Norris would run out of laps in the end. Isaac Hadjar, I think he can be very, very happy with this weekend. I'm giving him a 9 out of 10. Seventh place man, Lando Norris, and this is a tough one to judge because he's had like a really good weekend in parts. Just the result hasn't come for him, and I don't think it's all down to him. A really brilliant qualifying session, got P3, made a mistake though, and I think that's the little disappointing thing because it looked like he was taking the fight to the Mercedes. I think it would have been about a 10th off, but I think he still had a position to make up, could have lined up second, which would have put him 12th. In the race, though, I think it was just a strategy call. Like, I really didn't understand it. He was put to him at the end of whether he should, and the team made a mistake on not pitting him under the VSC. I did question it in the watch-along as well, of what the tactic was from there. Is it the fact that they didn't think the mediums would be able to do 25 odd laps, and for him to hold position? Because at that point, he'd got himself right in the hunt. He would pass Oscar right in there with ahead of Isaac. But the fact that he just kept running and running meant whenever he was going to pit, he'd come back behind Isaac and then had to do the job on track. And we'd seen from people earlier, the undercut wasn't strong. Deg wasn't high, and that was quite clear to everybody very early on in the Grand Prix and should have been clear to McLaren. And I think that's the most disappointing. But when he did get in, he got a really slow stop, a sticky rear tyre as well. So just one of those weekends where it's just kind of not falling for him. But I think he's done everything that he could do, and he was kind of let down by the team a little bit here this weekend. So he's, again, one to really difficult to judge. He's been the better of his teammates. No big upgrades on this McLaren, despite talk of that pre-weekend, but it was just a revised rear wing. Whether we'll see more come in Hungary, we'll watch that space. But we're not quite seeing the machine of the upgrades that McLaren has been. And, well, when they come, they need to be good, because they've got driver, especially in Lando Norris, that can really take the fight to the front. And can they throw themselves in the mix with Ferrari, jumping to battle Kimi Antonelli? For me personally, I think for the championship, it just needs to be Ferrari versus Mercedes with the amount of race and Grand Prix left and the gap that Kimi Antonelli has. If Ferrari and McLaren start taking points of each other rather than off Mercedes, that won't help Ferrari. It's only going to help Ferrari if McLaren take points off Mercedes as well, and Ferrari can beat them at the odd Grand Prix, and then it'll be brilliant. But let's see what they can do. But for Lando Norris, I think it's a good drive from him this weekend, so I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. 8th place man, Gabriel Bortoleto, and he's had a solid weekend in this Audi. Really impressive. Got into Q3, qualified P9. Upgrades in this car from the previous Grand Prix, not a huge amount of upgrades this weekend though. Stayed out of trouble, kept his head, beats a Racing Bull. I just think beat 2 Racing Bulls. Best of the rest, really. I think it's a solid job. Consecutively in the points now, he's got 10 points to his teammate 0, the more experienced Nico Hulkenburg. So it just shows what a strong weekend and campaign Gabriel Bortoleto's having so far. And he's done it again this weekend. Difficult to judge, questioning between an 8 and a 9. I'm going to be generous and I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. 9th place man, Arvid Lindblad, and another strong qualifying performance, got into P8 and delivered another points drive, the quickest Racing Bull in the midfield. He is the one with the upgrades on this Racing Bull. It was a coin toss between him and Liam, and it was decided on who qualified where in Silverstone. Lindblad beat Lawson, so he gets the upgrades. Make of that what you will. Yes, Liam Lawson's been the strongest of the two, the more experienced, and the guy with the most points in the championship, so you'd think they'd bank him. They didn't. Thankfully for them, though, Lindblad delivered in the race. Because they did not done so, I think big questions would have been asked of the team of why you've gone down that road and given a rookie your new upgrades. Had he put it in the wall, and it's possible around Spa, and if you do put it in the wall here, it's a big one, and they only produced parts enough for one car. They were going to delay it until there was parts for both cars. Both drivers agreed that was silly. Let's just get it on one car at least. And Arvid, he's made the most of it, and another really good weekend for him. He's been strong in performance, better than his teammate, but you kind of expect that with a better and upgraded car. But before this weekend, he's been right close to his teammate, and there's not been an awful lot to pick between the two. Racing Bulls have generally been best of the rest. They were beaten to that by an Audi this weekend. I'm sure they'll bounce back stronger in Hungary as well. But for Arvid, a solid weekend. I'm giving him an 8 out of 10. 10th place man, Franco Colapinto, and this guy is back. We were questioning him early doors. He was making mistakes, but Franco has been consistent. He stood up and he's now beating his more experienced teammate, and it's what we love to see. One of the overtakes of the weekend, with the battle between his teammate and Liam Lawson, he took the pair of them a little bit like what Charles Leclerc did to Russell and Max Verstappen at the start of the Grand Prix. Battery assisted or whatever, he played the game. It worked out in his favour. The way he used the battery and managed it was really good, and got the decisive move which got him the point and not his teammate. And this is what you love to see. This is what he needs. Great performance from him. He can be very happy with that point. Beats his teammate. More questions answered as well this weekend about has he got it? Is a temperament there? Has he got the pace? And we're showing more of what we've seen in his early days when he came into Formula One in Williams. And long may it continue. Really proud and happy to see Franco do well here. He can be happy with his weekend. I'm giving him an 8 out of 10. 11th place man, Pierre Gasly. A bit of a scruffy weekend. He crashed the same as Lewis did, but he did an FP2, so didn't quite have the problems of getting the setup right for qualifying. He out-qualified Franco Colapinto, beaten by him in the race, and I think that'd be the big disappointment for him. To lose out for that 10th place to your rookie teammate, I think that's the big disappointment of his race weekend. A crash, a bit sloppy, not the Pierre that we know and used to, so I'm giving him a 5 out of 10. 12th place man, Liam Lawson, and he's been in a race this weekend, hasn't he? Battles everywhere. Had the battle with Gasly, lost out to Colapinto in that whole fight when he was looking like he was in for a move on Gasly. Didn't come off. And he was running high up in the early parts of the Grand Prix. I think it just fell away from him. I don't know if others got advantage of this VSC and he didn't. But he's been beaten by Franco Colapinto, beaten by Pierre Gasly and his teammate. A difficult weekend. He's been generally on form. Hard to criticize him. He's going to have these dips. He didn't have the upgrade package that his teammate did, so that's an excuse that falls in his favor. but he probably would have expected more, and to be at least fighting for that final point. It wasn't to be in the end. I'm giving him a 6 out of 10. Next up, Nico Hulkenburg misses out on points when his teammate picks them up. I think the cost really was paid in qualifying, a bad qualifying session for him. His teammate was up in 9th place and he qualified in 14th, and then was in the battle all race ahead of him. Missed out. He was only a couple of seconds behind 10th place, so in that mix for the final points, it didn't come off for him, and it's been a little bit of a disappointing campaign. As I said earlier on, 0 points for him in the championship, and he's sort of the star leader within this Audi outfit, the man that's got pace. I'm sure he's bringing a lot to the table in just what he can do on race weekends. The way this car is developed and the direction that they go in is going to be huge for him and the team. But for this weekend, it's another disappointing one. He's been beaten by his more inexperienced teammate and a bit off the pace in both qualifying and the race. So double whammy, a 5 out of 10 for me. 14th place man, Ollie Bearman, and well, it's been a difficult weekend for him and the Haas team. They're going backwards. They've bought upgrades, but everybody around them is going and bringing upgrades, and it seems like they're bringing better upgrades than them, which is sad to see because they were fighting for the final points positions and now they're slowly dropping back. He just missed out on Q2. He's beaten his more experienced teammate, you've got to say, potentially, but Ollie has sort of outshone the car at the moment. It's a quiet race in no man's land, really. But he did the job that he could do. It's really hard to rate drivers like this. You generally call low just because of where they are, and it wasn't really anything exciting. But if they've maximised what the car has, then that's kind of where the rating comes from. So instead of going for a 5, I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. 15th place man, Alex Albon, and I forgot to say it's been another difficult weekend for him. He's out qualified by Carlos Sainz. He's qualified in 17th place. Started ahead of Carlos because Carlos took a penalty and he only just finished a second behind. Carlos had damage as well to make for a difficult race, and so the pace is not really quite there from Alex. Yes, he's beating him in the race, but I don't think that's a highlight. I think he, like other drivers, is still yet to get on top of these 2026 cars. It's hard when the car is not very good either, but I just think Carlos is getting more out of it than he is at the moment, so I think there's more performance potentially in there. Well, I don't know what they can do at the moment. I don't know what Alex can do, but they need upgrades. They need it to work. They bought us some revisions to the floor this weekend, but they've not really made big changes to this car. When will we see them? That is the big question that him and his teammate will be asking, and they need to work and get back in fighting for points because they don't want to turn up to race weekends fighting at the back. It's hard to keep your motivation going. Just look at Alonso and Stroll, case in point, when the car's just not there. So big few weekends for Williams. They need these upgrades. They need them to work. And Alex needs to get on top of this car. He's not quite managed it just yet. I'm giving him a 5 out of 10. 16th place man, Carlos Sainz. And is he losing his patience with this Williams team? But where does he go? A brilliant driver. There's no two ways about that. He's had the better of his teammate for much of this season, but he's not going to be happy finishing in 16th place. He wasn't happy with the team for changing the front wing on damage, thought that it was just manageable. Had the penalty, was ahead of his teammate, finished behind him with the front wing change, and was only a second behind Alex as well. So strong race pace. He should have finished higher up, wasn't helped. Incidents, these sort of things happen, but it's just he'll be begging the question of we need upgrades. He needs them fast. But yeah, otherwise I've got to say probably a difficult weekend for him also. I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. 17th place man, Estaban Ocon, and it just seems to be getting from bad to worse for him at the moment. I'm not sure what's going on. Could he be the first sort of in-season replacement as a driver, because he's been easily outqualified by his teammate, finished 18th, had an incident with Carlos Sainz, had an incident with his teammate, he got a puncture, and obviously that didn't help his race either. But at the moment, just nothing seems to be going right for him. And this has been another horrible weekend for Esteban Ocon. I'm giving him a 3 out of 10. 18th place man, Valtteri Bottas. He makes it to the end of a Grand Prix in the Cadillac, and there's about as much cheer as we might get from him. He outqualified his teammate Sergio Perez, so a much better weekend from him when comparing it to his teammate. Not where he or the Cadillac team want to be. They've had a lot of problems, this Cadillac team, with the car, reliability issues on even upgrades and parts that they're bringing. And is it a question of we just keep bringing upgrades and they fail and we'll make it right and get there in the end? It's a tough business, Formula One, and Cadillac are finding out fast. They are soon to be, after Hungary, if Aston Martin's upgrades really work, to be the people that are just, filling the back row of the grid. Lucky for them, they've got one team that have done a shocking job, and they're kind of going under the radar a little bit. But Valtteri, much better from him. He'll be happier that he's beaten his teammate, but then needs to be more from this Cadillac team. I'm giving him a 5 out of 10. 19th place man, and the last of the official finishers, Fernando Alonso, finished 2 laps down in the end, and all he was glad to do was finish and go home and watch his team lift the World Cup. And about as great as his weekend was ever going to get, it was a weekend to write off really here in Spa. The big upgrades are coming in Hungary, so fingers crossed for him and the team that they are going to be significant, because they're 2 seconds off the back of Cadillac. And that's a huge amount of performance to find in an aero package. It's a huge revised aero package. Will we suddenly see them fighting for the points? I highly doubt it. But if it does, it's going to be hailed as sort of a hell of a job from Aston Martin. A little bit like the turnaround that we seen from McLaren a couple of years ago. So it's possible. Is it probable? It's not always going to work out like that. We'll soon find out. The answers we'll find out the answers, and the questions will be answered, is what I was going to say, in Hungary. So we haven't got long to wait. Fernando will be glad to see the back of this version of the car, promising and light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe we'll find out in Hungary. Aero package coming there, new engine in Dutch, so some promise. Difficult weekend for him, had a grid penalty, finished at the back. Not much more we expect from this car. Fernando, I'm giving him a 5 out of 10. Finished. On to the DNFs. We'll start with Lance Stroll. He got 25 laps into the race. He was, on the final row of the grid before penalties, and then he had a gearbox problem, which finished his race. Again, not much you can say. Like Fernando Alonso, will be just looking forward to a better car in the next couple of weekends, and this is probably where their season really starts. A 4 out of 10 for Lance Stroll. Next up, Sergio Perez. He got 13 laps into the race before his DNF. He came onto the radio with a broken suspension, and you don't want to be driving around Spa with that. We've seen problems with their brakes, problem with the calipers that were upgraded and failed previously. Broken suspension now. So the parts and upgrades that they're bringing are just not reliable. These are serious parts that we don't see failing in the big teams, and Cadillac are a huge company. They need to get on top of this. Hard weekend, hard to judge Sergio, but he was beaten by his teammate in qualifying, and he didn't get too far in the race. I'm giving him a 4 out of 10. And then comes George Russell, the man on everybody's lips this weekend after his emotional interview, after his exit, and even his unheard team radio down the straight, and he was like, what's happened to the sock? What's happened to the car? And this is unacceptable. The rant of the little baby came out hard and strong. and he doesn't do himself any favours and enduring himself into this team at Mercedes, especially with all this talk of Max lingering around. He's always very open and critical of the Mercedes things when things don't go right. And it was only earlier in the season when he was raving about how great this car, and I love these car, I love this engine, and now it's the worst thing ever, but his teammates doing the job. Unlucky with the incident. It was a racing incident that he felt. I felt the same way. Clearly, there was some sort of battery issue. Was it the way that he just drove through the early part of the race that he didn't get the battery back? We've seen that with Max. We've seen it with one other as well. Down the straight, we've seen the tactic that Charles used to get battery at the end of the Kemmel straight rather than using it through Eau Rouge, for example, because he said he got away well. It was working up to a point, and then at the end of the straight, it was finished. So is it just the way he deployed it? Was there an issue with the deployment? We don't know. Mercedes and Toto has said it is a Mercedes problem, so we'll take that off George Russell. But another weekend where he's lost a huge amount of points he's had some luck. There's no two ways about that. He's been beaten by his teammate and closed that gap in the championship to 25 points. It's now a huge 50 points again. Is it through no fault of his own? Potentially. He could have stayed out of danger. We've seen Max do that and live to fight another day. George fought every inch. And we got the racing incident with Lewis Hamilton. Was it just frustration of what happened down the straight with the engine? It sort of all boiled up into that in one moment for it, didn't it, at George on lap one? And it disintegrated and it ruined what could have been some solid points when your teammates got the better of you. It wasn't just in the race he was bad. He was bad through 3 practice sessions, comfortably nearly half a second back, qualified half a second behind Kimi Antonelli. All these frustrations must be building up because I've said before, George came into this weekend and into this season with the tag of the championship or the champion-elect with this Mercedes engine, and he's just been absolutely hammered by this young Italian, the rookie, who he was dead proud of during his first win, really happy. And now he'll be like, what is this kid doing? I want to destroy him. He's my teammate. He got to show some love, but really, George, he'll be massively disappointed. He's still figuring out if it's him or the car. He said this weekend, it's not my driving style, it's the car. Toto saying it's the car, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. A tough weekend to judge, but I think it was disappointing all round. Despite the accident, it was poor 3 practice sessions. He was miles off the pace. Poor in qualifying. I'm giving him a 4 out of 10. On to my predictions review, and I think I've had a quite solid predictions, not quite so in qualifying. I had Charles Leclerc to take pole, Kimi Antonelli second, Lewis Hamilton third. It was a brilliant pole lap from Kimi. Max was second with the brilliant toe, and Lando Norris pulled off a solid performance in the McLaren to take P3, so I didn't get any correct there. In the race, though, I had a Hamilton P3, Charles Leclerc P2, and a Kimi Antonelli to win, so I've got 2 of them right. Antonelli first, Leclerc second, and Max third, so I'll be very, very happy with that one. Ones to watch, I had the Audi, and points for Gabby beats the Racing Bulls, so I'm taking that one, a P9 in qualifying as well. The disappointment there is Nico Hulkenburg. He needs to step up in this Audi, like I said earlier, so we'll see what he can do next time around. I thought it'd be a bad weekend for the Williams. It was penalties, no pace, 15th and 16th they finished, beaten by a Haas, comfortably beaten by Ollie Bearman anyway, and Ocon's just on a bad run. I don't think they'll take any satisfaction of beating him. But yeah, overall, I think I've got to say, getting better at these predictions. I've got a 3 out of the, 4? Yeah, 3 out of 6, 8. Is that so great? Probably not. But anyway, there we have it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are new, please hit the subscribe button if you've enjoyed it. Hit the like, and I'll have the Hungary Grand Prix race review coming to you shortly, and then join me for the watch-alongs as well. Thank you all for watching. See you on the next one.